The National Baseball Hall of Fame is a monument to the incredible people whose prolific stories make up the history of this beautiful game. But, unfortunately, a chunk of this history is absent. In this series, we look to explore those whose contributions to the sport are worthy of enshrinement in the Hall of Fame, but for some odd reason or another, were left out of its most exclusive club. Today we'll be talking about one of the greatest pitchers to ever toe the rubber. A man with a rocket fastball and devastating splitter. A righty with virtually more accolades than any other pitcher in baseball history. Across a 24-year career with 4 different organizations, he earned a regular season and All-Star MVP. He was a 2-time pitching Triple Crown winner, 7-time ERA champion, 7-time Cy Young Award winner, and an 11-time All-Star. A man who set the single-game strikeout record, and a decade later hit that mark again. Welcome back to The Bad Baseball Fan. Let's make the case for Roger Clemens. Before we dive in, just a reminder to like the video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. Anyways, William Roger Clemens was born on August 4th, 1962, in Dayton, Ohio. Roger had an absent father that his mother left, and a stepfather who passed when Roger was only 8. His biggest male influence from that point on was his brother Randy. Randy Clemens was a stud athlete in high school and guided his little brother through adolescence. He graduated, married, and moved with his new wife to Sugar Land, Texas. As for Roger, he wanted to be an athlete like his brother and quite literally followed in his footsteps. In pursuing his dream, he moved out to Sugar Land to live with and be mentored by his brother when he was 15. Upon his arrival in Sugar Land, Roger spent a year attending Dulles High School, delivering a 12-1 record on the bump for the baseball team. Seeking higher profile baseball opportunities in the area, Clemens transferred to Springwoods High School, where he spent his final 2 years of secondary education. He rode the bench for most of his junior year and was tagged as the team's ace going into his senior year. Roger was solid for the team, but according to the SABR, he still threw too softly to draw any scouting attention. Following his senior year, his coach at Springwoods called his friend Wayne Graham, who had just been named the head coach of San Jacinto Junior College, and got Roger a spot on the junior college team to continue his path with baseball. He spent just one season at San Jacinto Junior College, amassing a 9-2 record and leading the school to the Texas Junior College Athletic Association Championship, before he left to achieve his dream of pitching for the University of Texas. It was at Texas that Clemens managed to make a national name for himself, spending 2 years there and leading the Longhorns to the College World Series in both years, capping his collegiate career with a national championship. Clemens compiled a 25-7 record with a 2.62 ERA across 1982 and 1983, establishing himself as one of the most dominant pitchers in all of college baseball. His accolades led to the Boston Red Sox taking him with the 19th overall pick in the 1983 MLB Draft. He wrapped up his career a few days later with a national title-sealing complete game victory against Alabama, and turned his attention to playing ball professionally. Roger Clemens started his professional career in Winter Haven, Florida, playing for the Class A Red Sox, but his tenure there, as it would be at every minor league stop, was short. He posted a 3-1 record with a 1.24 ERA and a .759 whip before quickly being called up to the AA New Britain Red Sox in Connecticut. Clemens finished the 83 season with New Britain, leading them to the AA championship, where he threw a shutout in the series-clinching game. By the end of the 1983 season, Roger Clemens had won 2 championships in 3 months, and he dominated every level from college to AA. Receiving an invite to Red Sox spring training in 1983, he posted an abysmal 6.6 ERA before being sent down to the AAA Pawtucket Red Sox to start the year. The parent club quickly realized their mistake when Roger posted a 1.93 ERA through April in AAA, and they chose to call him up to Boston on May 11th. 4 days later, he made his major league debut in Cleveland, where he had a less than ideal outing. Across 5 2/3 innings, he gave up 11 hits, 3 walks, and 5 runs, all leading to a no decision. He would get his first win in his second start, 5 days later, in a 7-inning outing against the Twins. Making 20 total starts and 1 relief appearance, Clemens ended up having a decent rookie year in 1984, posting a 9-4 record, 4.32 ERA, 1.313 WHIP, 126 strikeouts, and 1.8 WAR across 133 1/3 innings pitched. The injury bug hit late in August when Roger had to be pulled from a game against the Indians due to a strained forearm tendon, causing the Red Sox to shut him down for the rest of his rookie campaign. He would take 6th in Rookie of the Year voting. 1985 was a season full of injury struggles for Clemens, being placed on the 15-day DL in early July and having shoulder surgery in late August. But 1986 was the year Roger Clemens put the baseball world on notice. His 4th start of the season became the stuff of baseball legend. On a chilly night in late April, in front of a crowd of just 13,414 Sox fans, Clemens stepped onto the Fenway Park mound and proceeded to strike out 20 Seattle Mariners, breaking the single-game record set by Nolan Ryan in 1974, and improving his record to 4-0. This earned him a spot on the cover of Sports Illustrated, and it was about this time that his flamethrower status earned him the nickname The Rocket. He would go on to win his next 10 decisions, becoming only the 5th pitcher in Major League history to start the season 14-0. His historic first half earned him the nod as the American League starter in that year's MLB All-Star Game, matching him up against fellow young superstar pitcher Dwight Gooden. Roger pitched 3 innings in the All-Star Game, outpitching his Mets counterpart by retiring all 9 batters he faced, and was awarded with the All-Star Game MVP. His individual domination continued through the rest of the season, and the Red Sox finished first in the AL East. Clemens was recognized with the MVP award and the first Cy Young of his career, thanks to a 24-4 record, 2.48 ERA, 969 WHIP, 238 strikeouts, and 8.8 WAR across 254 innings pitched. According to the SABR, Roger Clemens became the first pitcher in history to win the regular season MVP, the All-Star MVP, and the Cy Young in the same season. The Red Sox took on the AL West champion California Angels in the ALCS, with the series going to the brink. Clemens started 3 games in the series, taking a loss in Game 1 and getting a no decision in a Game 4 loss before dominating in a decisive Game 7. When it mattered most, he got the job done, and the Sox moved on to face the Mets in one of the most infamous World Series ever played. We aren't going to deep dive on this World Series because it's been analyzed and discussed to death over the last 4 decades. So instead, I'll briefly detail Clemens' World Series exploits. Roger made 2 starts in the series, his first coming in Game 2 with the Red Sox having taken the first game and featured a rematch on the mound from that season's All-Star Game. Clemens wasn't his sharpest that night, only lasting 4 1/3 innings before departing. But he was sharper than Gooden was for the other side, and the Sox took the game 9-3. The Mets won the next 2 games to even the series before dropping Game 5 and putting the Red Sox on the precipice of their first World Championship in 68 years. And take a guess who was getting the ball in their hand for the potentially clinching Game 6. That's right, the Rocket. And he did his job well. With the pressure of generations of Red Sox on his shoulders, the 23-year-old phenom towed the Shea Stadium rubber and delivered 7 innings, 2 runs, only 1 of which were earned, and struck out 8 Mets. When he was pulled for a pinch hitter in the 8th inning, the Boston Red Sox had a 3-2 lead and were just 6 outs shy of that coveted, cursed World Championship. We all know what happens next. the Mets managed one of the most improbable comebacks in baseball history to win Game 6, then proceeded to cruise in Game 7 to snatch the World Series right out of Boston's hands. Roger Clemens had come so close. Boston had come so close. After Clemens' breakout campaign ended in sore disappointment, he returned to his elite form the next season, and his individual exploits were rewarded with the second consecutive Cy Young Award, thanks to a 20-9 campaign with a 2.97 ERA. But the team took a serious step back, finishing with a losing record. 1988 saw the team return to form, with Clemens still posting a solid but not stellar 18-12 record with a 2.93 ERA. Boston won the East, and Roger made one start in the ALCS, but the team was swept and knocked out of the playoffs by the Oakland Athletics. Clemens took a slight statistical step back for the second consecutive year in 1989, still pitching pretty well across the board though. He posted a 17-11 record and a 3.13 ERA, and the Red Sox missed the playoffs. 1990 was a return to legendary form for Roger, having one of the best seasons of his career. Even more dominant than he was in 1986, this time around Clemens posted a 21-6 record, 1.93 ERA, 1.082 WHIP, 209 strikeouts, and 10.4 WAR in 228 and a third innings. He took second in the Cy Young race behind Bob Welch, but a single glance at their overall statistics shows that this was a mistake. Team success followed, and the Red Sox took the East once again before being swept out of the playoffs by the A's again. Boston wouldn't make the playoffs again until 1995. Despite a production setback in 1991, he was awarded with his third career Cy Young Award after posting an 18-10 record, 2.62 ERA, and 241 strikeouts. Another great year in 1992 gave him a third-place finish in the Cy Young race before he ran into some struggles for the remainder of his time in Boston. He pitched pretty well in 1994, posting a 2.85 ERA, but the season was shortened due to the strike. His combined ERA in the 3 seasons outside of that, those being 93, 95, and 96, averaged out to be over 4. He made one last playoff appearance for Boston in 1995 when he started Game 1 of the divisional series against Cleveland, where his performance was solid but not good enough for the team to win. Boston, once again, was swept out of the playoffs. Though I've really hammered home his statistical decline, it's worth noting that his 96 campaign was a little bit of a return to form. Though he posted a losing record of 10-13, he ended with a more promising 3.63 ERA and led the league in strikeouts with 257. Most notably for sure, the 33-year-old starter stepped on the Tiger Stadium mound on September 18th and terrorized Detroit viewers by promptly striking out 20 batters in a game for the second time in his career. Despite that, by the end of 1996, when Clemens' contract was ending, Red Sox management had serious concerns about his increasing age and declining production. Fearing the overpayment of an aging star with attitude issues, the Red Sox offered Roger a middling contract that he decided to pass up. For the first time in his career, the Rocket was a free agent. Choosing to stay in division, Clemens ended up on a 3-year, $24.75 million deal with the Blue Jays. He only spent 2 seasons in Toronto, but it was there that his career had quite the late renaissance. Kind of like Barry Bonds did. Before I drool over Clemens' production with the Blue Jays, it's important to discuss a pretty big elephant that's been in the room with us the whole time. This dude, it seems, likely began using PEDs during his time in Toronto. According to Frederick C. Bush of the SABR, there are 2 reasons for this suspicion. First, the prevalence of performance-enhancing drugs in baseball by this time, and second, the hiring of Brian McNamee as Toronto's strength and conditioning coach after the 1997 season. Bush also notes that McNamee later claimed that he injected Clemens with the steroid Winstrol in 1998. There's nothing definitive to show that Clemens was juicing at the time, but the circumstantial evidence is rather damning, especially when you consider the atmosphere around baseball and PEDs at the time. Alleged steroid use or not, there's one thing that we can factually prove. Clemens absolutely shredded while he was in Toronto. Across his 2 seasons there, the Rocket posted a 41-13 record, 2.33 ERA, and 1.061 WHIP, all while amassing 498 2/3 innings pitched, 563 strikeouts, 6 shutouts, and 20.1 WAR. He was an easy All-Star selection for both years and walked away with 2 pitching Triple Crowns and his 4th and 5th career Cy Young Awards. Despite Clemens' dominance, the team wasn't really competitive, posting a 76-86 record in 97 and a much better 88-74 mark in 98, though that only led to a 3rd-place finish. Clemens wanted to compete for a championship, and following the 98 season, he requested a trade to a more competitive ball club. His wish came true in ways that he likely never imagined. On February 18, 1999, the Blue Jays traded Clemens to the Yankees for David Wells, Homer Bush, and Graham Lloyd. Clemens wasn't just traded to a contender. He was traded in division to an organization in the midst of a dynasty. He spent the next 5 years in New York, firmly establishing his legacy as one of the greatest pitchers to ever toe a major league rubber. His 99 campaign wasn't personally great, posting a 14-10 record and 4.6 ERA, but his new team marched right through the playoffs. Clemens made 3 playoff appearances that year, 1 in each round, and the final one being a dominant 7 2/3 inning, 1-run performance in the World Series clinching Game 4 in New York. According to Jeff Jacobs of the Hartford Courant, Clemens remarked, "Tonight, I know what it's like to be a Yankee. I am blessed." During the World Series, it was announced that Clemens had been named to the All-Century team. Personality issues or not, Clemens, in his head, was finally getting everything he had ever dreamed of. The next season, Clemens pitched better, but still wasn't near the level he was at in Toronto. Posting a 13-8 record and 3.7 ERA, he and the Yankees made a return to that season's Fall Classic. Clemens made 1 start in that series, a rather infamous Game 2 where he dominated the Mets to the tune of 8 scoreless innings, only surrendering 2 hits. All of that was overshadowed by a rather bizarre encounter in the first inning between Clemens and Mets catcher Mike Piazza. Piazza shattered his bat on a foul ball, and Clemens proceeded to angrily pick up a shard of the bat and throw it at Piazza. The odd outburst drew criticism towards Clemens, who childishly claimed he thought he had the ball in his hand. He was fined $50,000 for the incident, and the Yankees won the series in 5 games. Standing on the peak of the mountain with back-to-back World Series championships to his name, Clemens returned to his elite form in 2001. He made his 2nd career All-Star start in July and won his 6th Cy Young thanks to a 20-3 record, 3.51 ERA, and 213 strikeouts. The Rocket pitched well in the playoffs, picking up 2 wins and 3 starts on the Yankees' way to another World Series appearance. He made 2 starts in the Fall Classic, a 7-inning, 3-hit, 1-run win in Game 4, and a duel for the ages in Game 7 with Curt Schilling, where Clemens went 6 1/3 of 1-run ball before the Yankees ultimately fell to the Diamondbacks on a walk-off single. Following the disappointing finish in 2001, Clemens' age began to catch up with him in 2002. He posted a 13-6 record with a 4.35 ERA and 2.6 WAR. The Yanks cruised to a 103-win season before collapsing in the divisional series, losing to the Angels in 4 games. The Yankees remained dominant throughout the 2003 season, finishing that year with 101 wins. Clemens himself saw a slight resurgence, posting a 17-9 record, 3.91 ERA, and 4 WAR. Returning to the World Series, Clemens pitched just 1 game, a 7-inning no decision in Game 4. The Yanks lost that game in extras and ultimately lost the series. According to Frederick C. Bush, Clemens had repeatedly said that he was retiring after the 2003 season. So when he walked off the mound after pitching 7 innings in the World Series Game 4, everyone assumed that it was his swan song. His retirement was short though. His good friend Andy Pettitte, one of my favorite pitchers of all time, signed with the Astros, and Clemens decided to unretire and join him on a 2-year deal. His first year in the National League was awesome. Posting an 18-4 record, he had a 2.98 ERA and 218 strikeouts across 214 1/3 innings. He got the nod as the All-Star starter for the 3rd time in his career, and was awarded with his record-extending 7th career Cy Young Award. The Astros won 92 games and made the playoffs as a wild card, beating the Braves in the divisional series before falling to the Cards in 7 in the NLCS, while Clemens posted a 2-1 record with a 3.6 ERA in the postseason. Having come so close the year prior, Roger Clemens returned in 2005 on a mission. In what would be his last full season at the age of 42, Clemens posted a 13-8 record with a 1.87 ERA, 186 strikeouts, and 7.8 WAR across 211 1/3 innings pitched. He made his 11th and final All-Star team and took 3rd in the Cy Young voting before Houston finished the year with 89 wins and a wildcard spot once again. Just like the year prior, they rolled through the Braves in the divisional series before taking on the Cardinals. This time though, Houston rolled in 6 games over St. Louis to make their first franchise appearance in the World Series. Clemens left Game 1 of the Fall Classic early with an injury, and the Astros were ultimately swept by the White Sox. With his contract up, it was broadly assumed that Clemens would retire, but alas, he did not, and proceeded to burn many bridges in free agency before re-signing with Houston in the end of May. He pitched quite well in his relatively limited time on the mound in 06, going 7-6 with a 2.3 ERA across 113 1/3 innings pitched, but the Astros failed to return to the playoffs. The following offseason felt like deja vu, as he flirted with both retirement and free agency. Ultimately, Clemens waited till May again before announcing that he was returning to the Yankees. He was diminished in what would be the final year of his career, finishing out with a 6-6 record and 4.18 ERA in just 99 innings pitched. His career ended with a hamstring injury in the ALDS. The wildfire career of the Rocket had come to a fizzling end. It seemed beyond obvious that Clemens wouldn't just be in Cooperstown, but that he would be a first ballot selection. Unfortunately for him, this was quickly derailed thanks to the Mitchell Report, released just months after Clemens' official retirement. Brian McNamee claimed in the report that he had injected Clemens with PEDs from 1998 to 2001, though Clemens vehemently denies this. A lawsuit and countersuit over defamation ensued between Clemens and McNamee that dragged on until 2015, slowly dragging baseball's attention away from Clemens' on-the-field accomplishments and solely focusing on his personal and legal issues. In 2008, Clemens was called to testify before Congress, in which he made contradictory statements to the point that he was subsequently charged with perjury, though he was eventually acquitted in June of 2012. And on top of all that, according to his biography from the SABR, Clemens was accused of cheating on his wife. The snowball effect was in full force, and as Clemens' 5-year Hall of Fame waiting period dragged on, it seemed the odds of him getting in were diminishing more and more. By 2013, his first year on the ballot, it was still widely believed he would get into Cooperstown, but now it would take a few ballots to do so. Almost poetically, his name made the ballot for the first time the same year as Barry Bonds, another infamous superstar whom I've made the case for. Clemens only got 37.6% of the votes, just over half of the 75% needed on his first shot. For the next 9 years, his percentage improved, but obviously not to the point that he needed it to, otherwise we wouldn't be here right now. His last year on the ballot was 2022, and he finished out with 65.2% of the vote. So much closer, but still just under 10% of the needed 75. His time ran out with the baseball writers, and now his hopes lay with the Contemporary Era Committee, one of the era committees that can grant Hall of Fame induction to those whose time on the ballot has run up. The next Contemporary Era meeting is in December of 2025, and if Clemens doesn't get in there, he'll have to wait until 2028. But he should be voted in. Roger Clemens' plaque should hang in the Hall of Fame, and here's why. Let's talk about his production. Just at face value, you can easily say that Roger Clemens wasn't just one of the most dominant pitchers of his time, but rather one of the greatest of all time. Across parts of 24 seasons with 4 organizations, Clemens garnered 354 wins, good for 9th all-time. He amassed 4,672 strikeouts, finishing with the 3rd most ever. How about the 138.7 wins above replacement for his career? That puts him at 3rd most amongst all pitchers in MLB history, and the only other modern pitcher even near him is Tom Seaver at 106. As a pitcher, a man who plays 1 out of every 5 games, Clemens managed to lead the entire league in WAR 4 separate times, and led all pitchers in WAR 7 separate times. Speaking of the number 7, Clemens garnered 7 ERA titles and 7 Cy Young Awards in his career, by far the most all-time. His adjusted pitching runs sits at 708 for his career, good for the 2nd most ever, and he sits at 17th all-time in adjusted ERA plus with 143. It goes on and on and on too. He led the entire league in FIP 9 times. What about his 46 career shutouts, placing him at 26th all-time when he played into an era where starters pitched less and less innings? No matter how you shake it, classic statistics, advanced metrics, comparisons to his contemporaries, and comparisons to those of the past, Clemens was always that dude. It's no secret why he's not in the Hall of Fame. Mirroring Barry Bonds, Clemens was a notoriously difficult personality, and he dealt with serious PED allegations during the back half of his career. Voters are told to take character into account when voting, and this seems to be what has held Roger back from enshrinement. But frankly, the character thing feels like a way for writers to insert their bias. The blatant hypocrisy of Hall of Fame voters who look down their nose at people like Clemens after gladly voting in men like Bud Selig, who was known for dirty business tactics as an owner. The standard we hold modern players to while gawking at the plaques of Rogers Hornsby, a supposed KKK member, and Ty Cobb, one of the most notorious, dirty, immoral people to ever play the game. The Hall has many seriously problematic members, especially when analyzing their lives from a modern context. So the idea that we use the Hall as some sort of moral pedestal for modern players to look up to is a fallacy. Clemens threw temper tantrums, and he likely took steroids. But he didn't hurt anybody. His alleged cheating seems to have selfishly prolonged the career of a man who just couldn't let the game go. We tend to talk about the steroid-era players as if they ruined the sport, when in reality they practically saved it following the 1994 strike. Bud Selig knew this and allowed these things to happen. And as soon as public opinion turned against steroid use, Selig made sure that the fingers were pointed almost exclusively at the top of the mountain. Clemens is one of the few that have been made a weird example of, and I believe it's time for us to turn a more critical eye to the organization that facilitated PED culture rather than the individuals that may or may not have participated in it. It's almost as if placing the burden of the steroid era on men like Bonds, Clemens, or even Alex Rodriguez have offered catharsis to MLB and its fans. But it's just an illusion. It's just a band-aid on a much more serious issue. Shaming a handful of the dozens of players that juiced will not fix the goodwill that baseball lost itself during the steroid era. It's time to stop taking it out on the players from that time and tell a more comprehensive, complicated, and honest story of baseball in Cooperstown. Love them or hate them, guys like Roger Clemens are outright legends in baseball history, and their stories are crucial to the understanding of the history of the game. Thanks to you all for being here. If you enjoyed this video and you want to find ways to support me, consider being a member of the channel and buying some merch. It really helps me out a ton. Remember, if you like baseball, like this video and subscribe for more.